Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. It's National Tattoo Story Day, Tone. Do you have any tattoo stories?
I'm Tony Kornheiser, just one. It involves a bottle of mezcal, a hot glue gun in the lower back of Ed Asner, but I can't tell it on the air.
No, you
can't
can't.
tell.
Okay, in the interest of full disclosure, neither one of us has a tattoo, not a single tattoo, and we have no tattoo stories. That's the truth. So if you think we're not cool enough, watch something else.
Yeah. I was hoping you'd ask me about the Ed Asner thing because I'd have told you Mary Tyler Moore was involved, but I didn't go that way. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the Chiefs beat the Bengals, the Saints are rolling, and Sam Darnold is surprising. But we begin today with the Panthers benching Bryce Young in favor of Andy Dalton. Head coach Dave Canales announced the decision this afternoon following Carolina's terrible home showing against the Chargers. You finished that game 18 for 26, but for only 84 yards and a pick. Carolina made a huge trade to land Young prior to last season, Wilbon. What does this move say to you?
Tony, it says that as much as I root for this kid, and I know a lot of people do, he's probably not good enough to have been chosen in that spot, and maybe even in any spot in the first round and play quarterback, starting quarterback in the NFL. And he's certainly not in a position that is conducive to surrounding him with the best possible result. Yeah. So he's on a bad team, and he may not be good enough, and it's just that the timing is awful. And Tony, he probably, if this is it, and I hope this is not it, maybe there's another chance for him. He's going to get another chance there in Carolina. He's not done not playing forever there because they chose him with the first pick. A year ago or 2 weeks ago, we thought Sam Darnold would have been on that list, but he seems to have pulled himself off of it. But the likes of Ryan Leaf and Jamarcus Russell and Akili Smith and Zach Wilson, you have all these players, and those are just the quarterbacks. The other people that have been drafted very high that it doesn't work out for, and maybe it can work somewhere else, and maybe it doesn't, and quarterbacks have this thing that stays with them. It's a stigma that attaches itself, and I hope it doesn't to this young man because I just like him and everything he seems to represent, but he doesn't appear good enough, and that team's a disaster.
Yeah. So he has started 2 games this year for the Panthers, and they have scored a total of 13 points. This is not a tenable circumstance. I'll give you some statistics. He's attempted 56 passes in those 2 games, and he has accrued 245 yards. That's 4.4 yards per attempt, and that's bad. It was worse yesterday when it was about 3 and change per pass. And you have to, they traded up to get him at number 1. Yeah. He's a bust right now. I'm sorry. I am sorry, but he's a bust now. There was a lot of talk before the draft. Is he big enough to go number 1? Because he's only 5'10". And I lay this at the feet of the owner. The owner made the trade. The owner made this pick. This kid, Bryce Young, started 16 games last year. He was 2-14. He's 0-2 this year. He's 2-16. You can't keep going like this, Mike. You mentioned a lot of the busts, and and there are a lot of busts, and maybe he shows up in another place and it works. Yeah. But the coach now isn't the coach who drafted him. He has no allegiance to him. This is his 3rd head coach in 18 games.
And by the way, as I said, the franchise is a disaster. So he is not in an environment conducive to success. No. And he might not be good enough. And you put those 2 together, and it's this is what you get.
That's right. We move to the AFC and the newly 2-0 teams there. They are Kansas City, got a late pass interference call to beat the Bengals.
Good
Pittsburgh held the Broncos to just 6 points at home. Houston, Caleb Williams 7 times, and the Chargers beat a bad team, as we just referenced, Carolina. Yeah. Wilbon, which of these 4 AFC teams impressed you the most?
Houston, easy for me. And they got pushed last night at home. Though they won that game, and you mentioned accurately, they sacked my man Caleb Williams 7 times. The Bears had the possession of the ball down 6. So they had a chance to win that game late, and that defense stayed after it. But it's Houston. Tony, it's Houston easily to me. Before the game last night, you noticed because weeks ago I said, I think Houston is the 2nd best team in the AFC.
That's right.
I would take Houston. I will take Houston. And last night was confirmation over anybody in the AFC other than Kansas City. And by the end of the year, they may be Kansas City's match. But let me just mention this. Not only do they have the fabulous second-year quarterback, and they got it right, Houston did,
That's right.
They got Stephon Diggs in the offseason. They got Joe Mixon in the offseason. And they got Will Anderson in that previous draft, okay? And this kid, Nico Collins, who's about 6'3", 225 pounds, a bruising receiver. This isn't a condition that you normally talk about, bruising receiver. He is big and strong and will run past you and run over you, sort of like DK Metcalf, but he seems meaner. They're the goods. They can rush the passer. Yeah. They can take you out in a million ways. They can run the ball. They got it all. The answer for me is the Houston Texans.
Yeah, I'm going to discount them a little bit for this reason, that they have beaten Cleveland and Chicago so far, and they're just okay. I don't particularly admire the strength of the competition they've had. I'm going to discount Pittsburgh a little bit because they've only scored one touchdown in 2 games, 1 touchdown. And Justin Fields hadn't been much at all. I think he passed for 117 yards
He's been good.
yesterday. That's
Fields
all.
Has been good now.
I'm leery of the Chargers. I'm leery. I think they might be in turnaround with Jim Harbaugh, but I don't really know yet, though they're plus 25 already in the season. And I'm going to land on the Chiefs for precisely the reason you said that you rated Houston underneath the Chiefs. Well, just give me a second here. The Chiefs, and I'm going to pick them even though their margins of victory have been small, and even though they have the advantage of being at home.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to hear that their opposition isn't good, even though they're a combined 0-4, because Cincinnati was really good yesterday. Cincinnati was a playoff team yesterday, and Cincinnati should have beaten them in that game, but the Chiefs won. And in the opening game, Baltimore was very good. If their guy doesn't have his toe on the line, they can win that game.
Yeah.
But the Chiefs won. What I get down to, the final sentence for me is always, but the Chiefs won.
Yeah.
To me, they are the best team in football, and that's why I go with
They should have lost yesterday. But that
Yeah.
call was legit.
Yes.
I don't want to hear people saying there's no pass interference. Yes, it's pass interference, damn it. Make the call they did. That was the proper call. Let's move to the NFC, where 4 teams are now 2-0. The aforementioned Sam Darnold and the Vikings are one of them. After beating the Niners, the Saints crushed the Cowboys. The Bucs upset the Lions in Detroit, and the Seahawks edged the Patriots. Tone, which of those 4 winners do you find the most impressive?
I probably should say New Orleans, because they've scored 91 points in 2 games, because they're plus 62 already in 2 games, and because they went to Dallas and shredded Dallas. But I'm going to say Minnesota, because New Orleans, their quarterback Derek Carr was with that team last year. The Minnesota quarterback last year and for a few years before that was Kirk Cousins. And they landed on Sam Darnold, who was terrible with the Jets, who was ineffective, I believe, in Carolina and was invisible in San Francisco. And they beat the San Francisco 49ers. That's an enormous win. Sam Darnold is completing passes at 72% of the time so far this year. He's a career 60% guy. At the very least, Mike, at the very least, I think you would agree with me that Minnesota is the surprising. But, I should probably back off and just say New Orleans again, because New Orleans did something that nobody does. The first 16 times they held the ball this year, they scored. The first 16. Yeah. And 11 of those were touchdowns. And Derek Carr's completing like 77% of his passes. He's already got 5 touchdowns, right, and 1 interception. So it's probably them, but I'm partial to Minnesota.
Well, Tony, I hear about Minnesota being the most surprising. New Orleans just did in Dallas what the Packers did the last time we saw them in Dallas. They ran the ball down their throats, okay, because the Cowboys look soft. They look gummy. They look like any team knows they can hit them in the mouth and then come after them. And the Cowboy defense, they can have Micah Parsons all they want. You don't have to put your quarterback in harm's way when you can run the ball down the Cowboys' throats in Dallas. So I'm going to discount that just a little. The Saints, more power to them. We just saw the Packers do it. So there's a blueprint out there for taking apart, for dismantling the Cowboys. And a much tougher place to play, since Dallas is a front-running fraud, a much tougher place to play is Detroit. Ford Field, which is louder and meaner and more intimate and just a more difficult place to play. And Tampa, your boy Baker Mayfield, I am now being won over. They went in there, Tony. They survived. Aiden Hutchinson got after them. What do you have, 5.5 sacks? Look, He may wind up being the best defensive lineman in the NFL since Reggie White.
4.5.
He is in Reggie White land. You know, I think Reggie White may be the greatest defensive lineman ever.
Mike, here is the small pushback.
What?
Tampa Bay was a playoff team last year.
Okay.
They're under the radar right now, but they were a playoff team last year. That's why I said what I said about Minnesota. I mean, it's such a surprise to me.
It's a surprise.
Minnesota is so surprising.
How about them Cowboys?
Let's take a break.
Get off the stage.
Well, soft is probably right. Let's take a break. Coming up, the Ravens find themselves in an 0-2 hole.
And Arch Manning may have had the highlight of the college football weekend, but is he the biggest story coming out of that weekend?
I think we both got off Seattle because beating New England in overtime is not a great credential.
But, New England...
Pardon the Interruption is brought to you by...
It's time to take some questions from the commoners, but not the commanders. 7 field goals. What? Let me see what's first in here.
How about that kicker?
Here we go. Is the bigger headline the Ravens, Rams, or Jags falling to 0-2?
Oh, it's the Ravens. This is easy to me. I don't have any real expectations of the others. The Ravens, okay, coordinator there, the new offensive coordinator. And they handed him a guy named Derrick Henry, who's only going to the Hall of Fame. Who is your closer? He's Mariano Rivera with a 10-point lead late in the game twice. And for you to give him the ball one time in the fourth, after giving it to him twice last week with a lead in the fourth, that would make you a fool. Only a fool would say to Derrick Henry, no, I don't need you, because I care more about my philosophy of offensive football. I care more about structure. No, give the ball to Derrick Henry because no one can stop him. Nobody stopped him on the one carry when he went about 5.5 and dragged the linebacker with him. That is the stupid, idiot call and performance of the weekend. Any level of football.
Yeah, I'm hoping the bell comes soon because I'm not going to disagree with a word of that.
Good.
I'm not. It's not the Rams because the Rams aren't really a good team. And it's not the Jaguars because we are both so disappointed in Trevor Lawrence, who's not the quarterback we thought he would be coming out of Clemson. They started out 8-3 last year, and they closed 1-5, I believe. So it's by elimination, it's the Ravens, and it is the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens being 0-2, nobody expected them to beat the Chiefs. They could have, again, if your toe's not on the line, they could have. It's not a disgrace to lose that game. It's not even a disgrace to lose to the Raiders, but it is a disgrace to blow a 10-point fourth quarter lead at home for the fourth time since 2022, tied for the most in the NFL. You're right 100% about Derrick Henry not getting the ball. Look, Lamar Jackson, you're the MVP. You got to win these games. I'm sorry.
Tony.
You got to win these games. Do you know what they've got coming up, Mike?
Yeah.
Their schedule coming up at Dallas, Buffalo, at Cincinnati. That's tough.
Tony, if I had walked into the building this morning as the GM of the Baltimore Ravens, I would have gone straight to the offensive coordinator room, and I would say, get out. Pack your stuff and get out. It's 2 weeks in a row. Now, Harbaugh's going to have to take charge. But I don't care about your offensive philosophy. You got Mariano Rivera in your uniform. Give him the ball or go home. You're fired.
Do you want me to do the second one,
Not
or you want
really.
to go back and do this in
Not
a replay?
really. I like to do that again.
What was your biggest college football story of the week?
Kentucky's uniforms are great. I hate rooting for those uniforms because they look like the Lions' new gray and blue. Beautiful uniforms.
Yep.
I was rooting for Kentucky just because I was being ornery. I have nothing against Georgia, where my father's family is entirely from. But they didn't win it, so I kept my headline. My real headline is, I don't like the way college football is going. I don't like having two conferences and a bunch of games I don't understand. Everybody else can slurp it on all networks, including this one, because they're invested in college football and telling you how great it is. It isn't great. It's not. It may get there by the playoffs, but Kentucky missed a chance to make that weekend great. They were close.
Yeah, you're so angry today. You wanted to fire the offensive coordinator. You want to get rid of all college football. You want to do that. And people often call me and they say, is he always this angry? And I said, mostly on Mondays. Sometimes other days it ends in wine.
I was pretty good yesterday. Was I not? Was I a good host?
Yeah, but you weren't on TV. You were watching TV. It's not Georgia because they always have trouble at Kentucky and they won the game. It's not Arch Manning, even though he comes in for Quinn Ewers, has 4 touchdown passes and a 67-yard touchdown run. But yeah, Texas is supposed to beat San Antonio. What it is for me, Mike, is the continuing dumpster fire that is Florida and Florida State. Florida lost at home to Texas A&M. They got riddled by Texas A&M. They're looking at Billy Napier's contract right now, you know, in the fine print in this contract. If I have this correct, he's 3-12 in his last 15 Power 5 conference games, if I have that correct. And Florida State lost at home to Memphis, a team that you pay money to come in and lose. That's what you do. They were 13-0 at one point last year. They are 0-3. They are a train wreck. These two teams, it's awful. And to me, it's a continuing
they
story.
Will be on TV more than teams in the West who've been displaced and are playing in stupid places like all over North Carolina in the ACC.
Yeah.
College football is not what it has been. And yes, I'm angry
It's good
today.
to see that you haven't calmed down even a little.
Baltimore,
Enough email.
Man.
Let's take one last break. Still to come, Kirk Cousins tries again tonight.
And the White Sox do something they haven't done since late June. Baltimore makes the right decisions. They're well run. They're well coached. They got a great stadium. They got a great fan base. They got a great quarterback. They got a guy who won't give the ball to a Hall of Fame running back who just got 5 yards. Get out.
Yeah.
Go home now. Your services are no longer required.
Happy time, people. Happy 69th birthday, Robin Yount. Maybe the greatest Milwaukee Brewer ever.
Ooh.
Yount was on the Brewers' 1982 World Series team, the only time the Brewers have gotten that far. That year, Yount batted .331 with 29 home runs and 114 RBI. They were Harvey's wall bangers, named after manager Harvey Keene. Yount was the AL MVP once as a shortstop and once as a center fielder. He was the 17th player in baseball history to reach 3,000 hits, and he was a first-ballot Hall of Famer. The Brewers are once again winning their division. They're going to be in the playoffs, though nobody talks about them.
I don't want to talk about cheeseheads. Let me just say this. I want to disagree with you about Yount, but it's Yount. I can't say it's Molitor, though you can build a case. I can't say it's Yelich because he didn't have enough. It was not as long.
No, it's Yount.
Yeah, it's Yount. It really is Yount. Yeah.
It's Yount. It is. Happy anniversary, Jim Thome. On this day 17 years ago, while playing for the White Sox, Thome hit his 500th home run. Serendipitously, this occurred on the day the White Sox were giving away Jim Thome bobbleheads. Plus, Thome hit a ninth-inning homer walking off the Angels. How many walk-off homers have the White Sox hit this season as they sink to new franchise depths? Thome was a huge man, country strong. He hit 612 home runs. That's 8th all-time. He hit most of them, 337 for Cleveland, then 134 for the White Sox, 101 for the Phillies, 37 for the Twins, and 3 for the Orioles. And of course, Thome is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and he should have hit most of those home runs for the White Sox. It's from Limestone High School in Peoria, where apparently he played shortstop. But Tony, there's a statue of him in Cleveland. And it's a really cool statue when you're walking around, particularly in the spring when I'm there for LeBron for a lot of years. You can see the Thome statue, but he's an Illinois boy. Proud of that. And the nicest guy.
Happy trails. Happy trails to whatever was in Josh Myers' stomach. The Packers center emptied it all onto the ball just prior to snapping that ball to Malik Willis on a 3rd and 10 against the Colts yesterday. Willis scrambled because he was not confident he could get a grip on that ball and throw it. After the game, Myers speculated that he vomited because it was 85 degrees in Green Bay and he was waterlogged from overhydration. Willis overcame the temporary unpleasantness to lead the Pack to a 16-10 win over the Colts.
I told you the Badgers were going to melt in that heat in Wisconsin, and they did against Alabama. Couldn't you call timeout?
They did.
You look at the ball, you just go, I'm sorry. Even if we got to take a penalty here, I'm not going there.
I would think, honestly, that the center linesman in that situation would have seen this and would say, no, we got to stop.
Yeah,
we got to do a do-over. We got to clean the ball.
Step in.
We got to clean the ball. One error. The Texans beat the Colts and the Bears. They didn't beat the Browns and the Bears, but it's really the same thing. And one omission, Chiefs running back Isaiah Pacheco will have surgery on a broken fibula. He is expected to miss
big.
at least 6 weeks.
That's big.
I would say at least. That's your leg bone.
That's big.
Come on now.
That's big news.
Let's go to the big finish
Let's
if we
do
could.
it.
Next shortstop, Francisco Lindor, who you love.
I love him.
Left Sunday's loss to the Phillies with back discomfort. Uh-oh.
Yeah, the MRI came back clean, but he could miss as many as 5 days. Says he's going to be okay, but still, Mets can't win without him. Team USA beat Europe to win the Solheim Cup. We are both impressed, are we not?
I watched a lot of it. A particular shout out to Rose Zhang. She went 4-0 in matches.
She was great.
She was great out there. Lionel Messi returned from injury to score 2 goals in a win over the Philadelphia Union. Are you impressed?
You know, this team is 8-2 without Messi. I mean, do they need the old GOAT? Pun intended. Monday Night Football, Falcons, Eagles, who you got?
I told you last week I thought the Eagles were in a bounce-back situation, and they were.
Yeah.
I got the Eagles. I like
Same
Saquon
here.
Barkley there. Last
Eagles
one.
big tonight.
The White Sox won their first series in their last 20. Excited for that?
Not excited, but relieved for them, Tony. I mean, when you lose this much, they took 2 or 3 from the A's. What does that mean about the A's? And, you know, I think the Cubs have
Means
the
they're going to
A's.
have to move
Need
to
the Cubs to win
Sacramento.
those games.
They're out.
Ugh.
Get out of Oakland. Go somewhere else. We're out of time. We'll try and do better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. And now to get you set for Monday Night Football, here's Scott Van Pelt and the Countdown crew. Hey, Shane Waldron, how about mixing a screen in every now and then with that pass rush? Only been doing it for 100 years in the NFL. Screen pass.
Fire him too?
See if you can
You
find
fired
it.
a lot of
Not
people.
yet.
Are you fire him
Not
too?
yet. I want to see a screen pass.
Soon.
Protect my
Angry
quarterback.
Michael Wilbon.